All right, let's jump straight into today's explainer. We are taking a completely impartial look at a really fascinating, highly specific piece of source material. It details 5 critical mistakes men make in modern dating, at least according to the Red Pill community. Now, whether you know all about these philosophies or this is literally your first time hearing about them, we're going to break down exactly what this source is arguing. Our goal here is just to lay out the strategy totally neutrally so you can really understand the mindset and the tactics at play. The whole thing kicks off with this incredibly evocative metaphor. The source argues that modern dating is essentially a magic trick. And for the trick to actually work, the magician, the man in this scenario, has to wear a mask. He can absolutely never reveal his true playbook to the audience, which represents the women he's dating. Because, think about it, the moment the audience knows how the trick is done, poof, the magic is gone. The entire strategy we're looking at today is basically a survival guide on how to avoid dropping that mask. So, how does this mask slip? Well, we're going to explore the 5 specific areas the source claims ruin the illusion: baggage from past relationships, reacting to strategic withdrawal, navigating modern empowerment, maintaining the secret illusion, and finally, the canceled date. Let's get right into it. Starting us off with section 1, baggage from past relationships. This first mistake is all about how a guy talks about his exes with a new partner. To explain the dynamic here, the source uses this brilliant analogy. Picture this. You hop into your very first Uber, but your driver is just terrible. They're angry, they're yelling. It's a completely toxic vibe. Now, do you just say, wow, that one guy was having a bad day? Or do you instantly judge the entire Uber company and think, yeah, I'm taking a cab next time? Naturally, you blame the whole experience. And this perfectly illustrates their core point about dating. If a guy goes on a date and tries to get sympathy about complaining about how his ex betrayed him or how crazy she was, the new woman doesn't just judge the ex. No way. She instantly assumes the guy himself is hauling around a ton of emotional baggage, and he's going to bring all that past toxicity right into this new relationship. To her, he literally becomes the angry Uber driver. So here is where the strategy pivots. Instead of spilling your guts for sympathy, the source recommends total airtight diplomacy. You just say, we didn't get along, she's a good person, I really wish her success. Why? Well, according to this philosophy, women are terrified of having their reputations trashed by a bitter ex. By wishing her well, you're signaling that you're a safe investment. You end things cleanly, no smear campaigns. Boom, the mask stays perfectly in place. Moving right along to section 2, reacting to strategic withdrawal. Let's see how this ties into emotional reactions and power dynamics. The source introduces this concept called strategic withdrawal. In this community's worldview, women inherently use this tactic, basically suddenly going cold or pulling away as a test. It's framed as a deliberate way for her to check a man's boundaries, see if he's emotionally stable, and ultimately try to grab the steering wheel of the relationship. The absolute make or break moment is how you react to this test. The rookie mistake is getting annoyed and calling it out, saying stuff like, look, my ex used to play these childish games. The source argues that snapping like that just proves you're easily rattled. The recommended move, total, unflinching indifference. You do absolutely nothing. You just wait for her to reach out again. Projecting that kind of icy indifference supposedly shows you're a high-value guy with other options who just doesn't get manipulated. It all boils down to what we can call the rule of mirroring. They strictly advise just reflecting her actions right back at her. She pulls away, you pull away, and you wait. The entire goal here is to make her realize you're built completely differently from the guys she's dated in the past, who probably panicked and chased her. You are maintaining that stoic, unbothered illusion. All right, on to section 3, navigating modern empowerment. This dives into the conversational minefield of discussing gender roles and work. Here is a huge pitfall the source highlights. Even if a guy genuinely wants a highly traditional relationship, saying that out loud, like casually mentioning, I really want a wife who stays home, is considered a catastrophic error. The text argues that makes you sound like a controlling patriarch trying to trap her financially. Instead, they tell men to actively play the role of the modern, progressive feminist. They actually note this is incredibly effective with women aged 18 to 25. You're supposed to enthusiastically agree that women's empowerment is the engine driving the national economy. To actually pull this off, the source provides a literal checklist of behaviors. Men are instructed to nod along with popular media figures like Rodwell Sherbany. They should pretend to absolutely love listening to romantic music on dates. Think Kadeem Al Sahir without a single complaint. Maintain strong eye contact, keep smiling, and whatever you do, never let your cynical red pill beliefs slip by saying, I don't believe in love. You give her the exact romantic illusion she wants while completely hiding the strategic gear turning in your head. That brings us to Section 4, Maintaining the Secret Illusion. This one is all about the tangible risks, your digital footprint, and how you communicate day to day. Because, let's be real, people snoop. The source operates on the assumption that a partner is eventually going to do some investigating. If you leave a digital trail of red pill strategy content, like being active in certain Facebook groups or subscribing to specific channels, the magic trick is over. If she sees you studying a manual on how to date her, the illusion of natural, spontaneous romance is completely shattered. So the advice is strict digital hygiene. Hide the subscriptions, lock down your phone, and drastically change your texting habits. Speaking of texting, the source is aggressively against doing it constantly. They argue that texting all day completely kills your mystery, but more than that, it drops you right into the elimination phase. The theory is that women have a bunch of guys texting them, and those texts act like digital resumes. By over-texting, you're just handing her all the data she needs to compare you to the rest of the pack and swipe left. The golden rule? Use the phone for logistics only. Set up a face-to-face date where you control the environment and then get off the phone. And finally, we arrive at Section 5, the canceled date. This is viewed as the ultimate stress test of a man's composure. Imagine this. She texts you an hour before the date to cancel. The source argues that getting upset, complaining, or trying to lay on a guilt trip like, "Are you kidding? I canceled plans with my friend for this," is a massive failure. Why? Because it shows you're emotionally reactive and honestly kind of implies you don't have much else going on in your life. You just give her a funny story to tell her friends. The right move? Cool as a cucumber. No problem, I'll call you next week. It totally short-circuits her expectations, makes her assume you have plenty of other plans, and leaves her wondering about you. The source basically wraps up its entire philosophy with this one underlying principle. Absolute emotional control is everything. They teach that a woman isn't really judging you on the test itself, but entirely on your reaction to it. If your reaction is consistently stoic, indifferent, and perfectly controlled, the magician's mask never slips. So, as we wrap up this explainer, we've seen exactly how this community instructs men to heavily curate their image, hide their playbooks, and rigorously control every single emotional reaction. It's an incredibly strategic, almost militaristic approach to modern dating. But I think it leaves us with a really provocative question to chew on. If you treat dating like a highly classified covert op, is it even possible to build genuine, vulnerable intimacy? Or does holding up this perfect magician's mask just guarantee an exhausting, lifelong illusion between two people? Something to think about. Thanks for exploring this with us today.